We're extremely pleased, in effect, at this annual conference to be celebrating our 5th anniversary at the Centre for Science and Policy. We have developed over the last 5 years, I think, what is best described as a unique network of academics, various people with expertise, and policymakers, and we put together an extremely, I believe, a very innovative network that delivers on a peer-to-peer basis networks of expertise and advice for policymakers so that there can be a constructive dialogue rather than, well, there can be a constructive dialogue. Let's be very positive about this. Now, we've had quite a year since the last conference. We've achieved quite a number of things, but I want to pick out 3 in particular. Firstly, the Policy Leaders Fellowship, which is part of our Policy Fellows programme, but is for the people at the top of the civil service and a few sprinkling at the top of NGOs and of industry. And we bring those together for bespoke afternoons, as it happens generally on a Friday, up in Cambridge, followed by a workshop and a dinner to discuss the various issues, plus various other things that we do for them. What that's part of trying to do is to say that some of the senior people, the very senior people in the civil service, don't necessarily have the time to do the kind of networking that perhaps we mere mortals get involved in. And we have to make sure that everything that we do at the Centre for Science and Policy is tuned to the people who we're trying to help. That's part of what we do. We experiment, and if it works, we stick with it. If it doesn't, we drop it. In the spirit of that, we're embarking on, I think, probably the 2nd or maybe the 3rd attempt at doing something where we're picking up topics and then trying to produce some advice. And I say this advisedly because I'm not an academic, I'm really a business person, entrepreneur, and I've noticed that you get to about business plan version 3 or 4 before it works. And I think we might be getting to where this would work. We are picking up policy challenges, funded we're very grateful to the ESRC for funding these, which are addressing high priority public policy issues. And we're doing that on the basis of the demand from our Policy Fellows network. We are not trying to do this from, for example, what the academics might think is a good idea to do. Since October, we've now initiated 3 of these challenges. These are emergencies and behaviour. I try not to think of this as don't panic, Mr. Mannering, but it is counterintuitive as to how people actually behave in emergencies. It is not obvious, and there's a lot of very interesting data, behavioural psychology and so on that goes into that, and we'll be launching that later on today. We're looking at ageing and public health, a big topic, and we're looking at climate resilient and built environment, particularly looking at resilience. And we will be moving on to open innovation and big data later on. Now, that list is important for a number of reasons. One, it tells you what our policy fellows are really interested in. Secondly, it tells you that we're responding to a market need, if I put it in such venal commercial terms. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, it is about a broad range of disciplines. We are the Centre for Science and Policy. We are the Centre for Sciences and Policy. We span all the social sciences. We have relations, for example, with the the Centre for History and Policy. You cannot deal with policy issues without having an extremely broad approach. And part of that broad approach, I'm going to be announced today that we are launching our first policy challenges briefing on emergency behaviours, and it provides training opportunities for PhD students from a number of UK universities, and our first cohort is from Sussex, Cambridge, Oxford and Edinburgh. And that's another point that I want to make about the Centre for Science and Policy. We may be based in Cambridge, but we collaborate with all leading institutions throughout the UK and elsewhere. We are kicking off a third initiative, which has just started, visiting research fellows. We do networking. We're very interested in studying networking. We're therefore going to do that by networking. And we're going to bring in visiting fellows. And we've had our first one and our second one arrives next month, who will be starting a process of doing research into how networks contribute to public policy. We can see this in this room, and you'll see it even more over coffee and lunch, how this stuff works. But we think that that's worthy of some significant academic study. This year we welcomed our 140th Policy Fellow. We've had the number of one-to-one meetings has now exceeded 3,300. We've placed 9 early career researchers in government departments to work on projects, and we span just about everything. We span the whole of UK government, we're into the European Commission, NGOs, and a sprinkling, not too much and not too little, of industry as well. And I'm pleased to say that we get about 1/8 of our policy fellows from the Cabinet Office. I don't know who else is there, but we'd like to know who you are. We're engaged with a whole load of research with UK Research Council's government departments. We're working on biodiversity, poverty alleviation, horizon scanning, emerging technologies, privacy and consent in the digital economy. And we're launching today over in Brussels a major project with Microsoft on cloud law and policy, collaborating with the University Computer Lab in Cambridge, but importantly as part of how we operate with Queen Mary's Centre for Law Centre. So that's another pointer to how we are working. We are an extremely collaborative organisation. In 2014, this is a really pivotal moment for us because we are going to start a fairly major research programme on how networks affect policy. It's obvious, I think, as I said, everybody's anecdotes points to that way. The idea of having linear PowerPoint that somehow goes from evidence through to policy formation, everybody in this room knows that that is the kind of thing that will look nice up on Microsoft PowerPoint, actually does not reflect anything like reality, and we need to study that. We are contributing to improving the use of evidence in public policy. We provide networks of expertise and evidence for public policy. We couldn't do this without the support of the David and Claudia Harding Foundation, Higher Education Innovation Fund, and a fantastic team at the Centre for Science and Policy. And I'm really privileged to be able to work with these people. They are absolutely superb. And it is one of the most interesting things I have ever done.